So at the moment we've got our player here, but when we're moving around, he just looks like he's sliding around in the world. And even when he's standing still, that's not looking very interesting. He's just kind of standing there. So we're going to start giving him some animations. So let's see how we can do animations on our character. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my assets folder here, and I'm going to create a new folder that I'm going to call animations. And this is just for somewhere for us to store our animations for our game. And I'm going to create a subfolder in here for the player. So these will be our player animations. So then I'm going to go to my player here, and with the player selected, I'm going to go up to window, then to animation and animation. And that'll create a new timeline animation window for us. So I'm going to click and drag this over beside the game view. So this will be laid over the game view here, and it's just an easy way, because if we want to make changes to our animations, generally you'll want to be able to see it in the scene view. It doesn't really matter too much how it looks in our game view at the moment. So with our animation tab selected, and again we need to make sure that our player is selected. If you have any other objects selected, then your animations will be tied to the wrong object. So with that selected, I'm going to hit create down here. Then I'm going to navigate to our animations player folder. Luckily I already have it open here, so it'll work correctly for us. So then I'm going to type player underscore idle. And this is going to be the idle animation for when our player is just standing still. So when we did this, because we had the player selected, if we look in our inspector over here, if I scroll down, you can see we've now added an animator component to our player, and this is what's going to control which animations the player currently has. And we'll return to how to control that in the next video, but for the moment we're just going to animate this little dude into action. So I'm going to get some graphics for us to use for this. So if I go back into my 2D platformer assets and the graphics folder and go down to player, and we had the player idle sprite sheet that we set up before, so we know we have the 4 frames of this. I'm going to click and drag these in one by one to our animation, which will allow us to have a smooth animation on our player. So I'm going to drag the first one in here, then I'm going to drag the second one into where the 10 number is. So by default the frame rate of an animation in Unity would be set to be 60 frames. So you can see it goes 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 and then 1. So this is all within 1 second. So after 10 frames, or 1/6 of a second, we'll move to the next frame of animation. So I'm going to drag in each of these frames like this, and we'll add the 4th one here. Now this is going to look a little weird at first, and I'll explain why in a moment. But if I go ahead now and play this, you can see we do get a nice smooth animation, except for the fact that it looks like he's jumping up really, really quickly. But if we drag this line along, you can see it starts high, goes down, down lower, then halfway up, and then he will be back up to the very top again. But what is happening with our timeline is, starts at this point, which is the top, then he's at the middle, then he's at the bottom, then he should go back to the middle, which he does, but because that's the end of where our frames go, it instantly jumps back to the start. So if I play, you can see what's happening is he ducks down and then jumps back up to the top. So to get around that, and this is just one thing you need to be aware of when you're doing sprite sheet animations like this, we'll go on further another 10 frames, and we're going to put the first frame of animation back in here. So now he'll do this smooth bobbing up and down. So you can see we've lost that sudden harsh jump up at the very end that we had a moment ago. So it's just something to be aware of when you're animating your player, is to make sure that you add an extra frame on at the end to see what's happening. Okay, so we've got a nice smooth idle animation to our guy now. So let's see what else we can do.